Elian's bedchamber is dark, except for the soft glow of candles that cast flickering shadows on the walls. The only sound is the candle's gentle crackle. He lies in bed, drenched in sweat, his chest heaving with each ragged breath. Elian's eyelids snap back, his gaze fixed on the ceiling as his mind replays the vision, his chest jerking with a sudden intake of breath. He sees a desolate landscape, a realm consumed by darkness, and the Shadow King's presence looming over it all. Elian's breathing quickens, his heart racing like a drum. His hand instinctively goes to the scar above his left eyebrow, a habitual gesture when he's troubled. The smell of melted wax and smoke fills his nostrils. Elian's grip on the bedsheets tightens, his knuckles white as he struggles to shake off the feeling of being watched. The Shadow King's whisper echoes in his mind, a low, rasping sound that sends a shiver down Elian's spine, his skin prickling with gooseflesh. Elian throws off the covers and gets out of bed, his bare feet making no sound on the cold floor. He paces back and forth, trying to clear his head. The candle's flames dance in the draught from the window, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Elian stops pacing and looks out the window into the darkness. He confesses to himself, "I fear the Shadow King's power is growing, and I am its target, the one it seeks to claim." The stone wall's rough texture scraped against Elian's fingertips as he trailed his hand over it. Before him, the window framed a slice of morning, but his gaze kept drifting to the symbol etched into the wall. Candlelight flickered, casting shadows that made the markings appear to shift. Elian's hand reached out, touched the symbol, and the stone's coolness seeped into his skin. A shiver ran down his spine as his fingers made contact. The symbol pulsed with a dark energy under Elian's touch. His mind racing, Elian's breath caught in his throat. What did it mean? Why was it here, in his bedchamber? Elian felt the symbol's surface, searching for answers. The room's shadows deepened, darkness gathering around the candle's flame like a living thing. Elian's fingers lingered on the symbol, his heartbeat quickening. The window's draught carried the scent of damp earth and moss into the room. Shadows cast by the candle danced across the walls as Elian's thoughts turned to the Shadow King. The silence between the candle's flickers grew, punctuated only by the sound of Elian's own ragged breathing. Elian's hand slipped away from the symbol, his fingers leaving behind a faint smudge on the stone. The room's chill seeped into his bones, the cold air biting at his skin. Elian's gaze locked onto the symbol, his eyes burning with a desire to uncover its secrets. The candle's flame steadied, casting a stable glow over the room, illuminating the symbol's dark lines. Elian's eyes snapped open, his chest heaving with a gasp. The vision still lingered, seared into his mind like a branding iron. He saw the Shadow King's dark army marching across the realm, leaving destruction in their wake. The sound of clashing steel, the scent of smoke and blood, it all seemed so real. His fingers dug into the armrest of his chair, the wood creaking beneath his grip. The room around him seemed to fade away, replaced by the desolate landscape of his vision. He saw the once green fields now scorched and blackened, the trees reduced to splintered stumps. The sky above was a deep, foreboding crimson, as if the very heavens themselves were bleeding. The Shadow King's power was growing, and Elian felt his own hope dwindling. He tried to stand, but his legs felt like lead, unresponsive to his commands. The vision began to fade, leaving him shaken and disoriented. The room slowly came back into focus, the candles on his desk casting flickering shadows on the walls. Elian's breath came in ragged gasps, his heart racing with a mix of fear and desperation. He knew he had to act, to find a way to stop the Shadow King's darkness from consuming the realm. But for now, he just sat, frozen in his chair, his mind reeling from the horror of his vision. The silence in the room was oppressive, punctuated only by the soft crackle of the candles. Elian's eyes drifted to the window, the glass panes reflecting the turmoil that raged within him. Night shrouds the ancient castle ruins, damp earth and moss scenting the darkness. Gravel crunches beneath feet as someone moves cautiously. The only sound is the soft crunch, until a faint glow emanates from a nearby chamber. Candlelight spills into the hallway, drawing a figure closer. The light grows brighter, illuminating a small, leather-bound book lying open on a pedestal. Flames dance across the pages, revealing old script. Fingers tremble as a hand extends, hesitating mere inches from the parchment's yellowed edge, as if the very touch might seal a terrible fate. The text is old, the language archaic, but the words sear themselves into the mind. The Shadow King's plan is revealed, a twisted scheme to consume the realm. Fingers tighten on the book, knuckles turning white as the words sink in. The room spins, shadows deepening as darkness closes in. Sweat breaks out on a forehead, a heart pounding in a chest. Words on the page blur, but the reader forces focus, devouring every detail. The text describes the conjunction of shadows, where darkness will converge upon the land, and the Shadow King's power will surge like a black tide, consuming all in its path. Eyes scan the pages, taking in every hint of what is to come. Candle flames grow higher, casting eerie shadows on the walls, like a phantom watching. The soft crackle of flames punctuates the silence. Breathing is slow, deliberate, as if trying to absorb the enormity of the discovery. Eyes never leave the page, a mind racing with consequences. Shadows press in, threatening to consume. Yet, the reader continues, driven by a desperate need to know, to understand the true extent of the Shadow King's power, like a sailor clinging to a lifeline. Fresh bread and ripe fruits fill the crowded market stalls. Merchants hawk their wares, their voices competing with the clucking of chickens and the clang of hammering on metal. A figure emerges from the crowd, dressed in tattered robes that hang in shreds. His piercing brown eyes lock onto a young man examining a batch of freshly picked herbs. The stranger's footsteps are deliberate as he approaches the young man. "You're looking for something, I think," he says, his voice low and gravelly. A hand instinctively goes to the hilt of a sword, a habitual gesture of caution. The stranger's gaze flicks to the sword, then back to the young man's face. "I might have information you seek," he continues, his words measured and careful, "about the Shadow King's weaknesses." Tension builds as the young man's grip on the hilt tightens. His eyes narrow, his mind racing with possibilities. The stranger's expression remains neutral, giving away nothing. "What do you know?" the young man asks, his voice firm. The stranger's smile is small and enigmatic. He glances around the market, taking in the sights and sounds before focusing on the young man again. But such knowledge comes at a price. He hands the young man a small, carved box. Solve the riddle inside, and you might just find what you're looking for. The stillness of the chambers was broken only by the staccato rhythm of fingers drumming on the armrest of a chair. Night had fallen, casting a dark, velvety shroud over the room, and the only light came from a lone candle that flickered on the nearby table. The chair creaked softly as its occupant sat with his back straight, his gaze fixed on some point in front of him, though his focus was distant, lost in thought. Old leather and wood polish scented the room, familiar comforts that normally brought solace, but now felt hollow. The armrest creaked softly as a grip tightened, the wood groaning beneath the pressure. In the mind's eye, a figure took shape, its features coalescing into the imposing form of the Shadow King's knight. The knight stood tall, its black armor absorbing the faint light, making it almost invisible, except for the gleam of its helmet's visor. A chest constricted, as if an invisible hand had closed around the heart. The knight's presence was suffocating, its loyalty to the Shadow King unwavering and unrelenting. The vision shifted, the knight's helmet tilting slightly as it regarded its target with an unblinking gaze. A deep, commanding voice spoke a single, chilling word: "Soon." The sound sent a shiver down a spine, fingers loosening their grip on the armrest as hands fell limp. The candle on the table flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls that moved in sync with a racing heart. Eyes never left the spot where the knight stood, though the vision was already fading. The knight's form dissipated, leaving behind only the faintest whisper of its presence. Breath came in short gasps, a mind reeling from the implications of what had been seen. Fear gave way to desperation, a cold, hard knot forming in the stomach as the true extent of the challenge ahead became clear. The Shadow King's knight would stop at nothing to fulfill its master's will, and Elian was the only one standing in its way. Cold stone walls close in around Elian as he traces the carvings that adorn the hidden passage. Stale air clings to everything, heavy with the smell of damp earth and decay. A low-hanging arch forces him to duck, his eyes adjusting to the faint light that filters through narrow slits in the walls. The passage twists and turns, leading deeper into the castle. A faint glow ahead casts an eerie light on the walls, illuminating ancient dust that coats every surface. Footsteps slow on the stone floor, and the sound of a heartbeat echoes off the walls. A corner turns, and a small chamber comes into view. Bare walls surround a single message scrawled in crimson letters. The darkness awakens, and the light shall fade. Elian's gaze lingers on the words, his mind racing to decipher their meaning. The only sound is the soft creak of old stone and the rush of air through the narrow slits. Elian's fingers reach out, hesitating for a moment before touching the letters. They flake away beneath his fingertips, dry and crumbling. He steps back, his eyes never leaving the message. The words burn into his mind, hinting at a terrible truth. In the darkness, the sound of his own breathing is the only noise. Elian's thoughts swirl, trying to grasp the implications of the message. Shadows cast by the faint glow seem to move of their own accord, like a dark presence watching him. The smell of old stone and earth fills his nostrils as he stands frozen, his eyes fixed on the message. Candlelight dances across the room, illuminating the yellowed parchment as it unrolls. Fingers tremble, smoothing creases from the worn document. The scent of aged leather wafts up, mingling with the smell of melted wax. Elian's eyes scan the script, searching for the hidden text. Words blur, then clarify, as the message reveals itself. The crackle of candles fills the room, punctuated by ragged breathing. A parchment lies flat on the table, its surface illuminated by flickering flames. Elian's grip on the parchment tightens, his fingers whitening as his chest seizes with a sharp intake of air, the truth unraveling before him. The Shadow King's plan takes shape, an ancient ritual that will bring about triumph and downfall. Shadows cast by the candles deepen, darkness gathering like a physical presence. Elian's mind reels, the weight of his discovery crushing him. Words on the parchment sear themselves into his brain, a constant reminder of the realm's fate. The soft glow of the candles casts an eerie light on the room, illuminating the lines of worry etched on Elian's face. The parchment crackles in Elian's grasp, yellowed paper trembling with each twitch of his fingers. Fixed on the text, his eyes widen in horror. Words blur, replaced by a vision of the Shadow King's true form. Candles on the nearby table flicker, casting eerie shadows on the walls as an unseen presence fills the room. A faint scent of old leather and dust wafts through the air, overpowering Elian's senses. His breath catches, his chest constricting as if an invisible hand has closed around his heart. Before him, the Shadow King's true form coalesces, a twisted mass of darkness that defies human comprehension, its presence making Elian's skin crawl with an unshakable sense of dread as his mind recoils in horror. Sing red embers burn with an inner fire, illuminating the shadows and casting an eerie glow on the walls. The creature's presence seeps into Elian's bones, his mind recoiling in terror. Shadows on the walls appear to twist, taking on grotesque forms that seem to move of their own accord. Elian's grip on the parchment falters, his hand trembling as he tries to process the sheer magnitude of the Shadow King's power. The vision grows more vivid, details sharpening. Elian's grip on the parchment loosens, his hand trembling. The creature's form shifts, darkness spreading, threatening to consume everything in its path. Elian's thoughts fragment, his mind splintering under the weight of the vision. His eyes, fixed on the Shadow King's form, feel burned, the image seared into his retina. The candles on the table sputter, casting an eerie, dancing light on the walls as Elian's breath comes in short, ragged gasps. The Shadow King's true form looms before him, an abyssal horror that threatens to consume his very soul. Elian's body freezes, paralyzed with terror, as the vision holds him in its grasp. The room falls silent, the only sound, the soft crackling of the candles and the heavy, labored breathing that fills Elian's chest. Elian's boots sink into the damp underbrush, the silence of the forest broken only by the faint rustling of leaves beneath his feet. He pushes aside a curtain of tangled vines, his eyes adjusting to the faint moonlight that filters through the canopy above. Elian's stomach twists as he catches the scent of rotting leaves and damp earth. A faint hum, like the buzzing of 1,000 insects, emanates from a clearing up ahead. Elian's hand instinctively goes to the hilt of his sword, his heart pounding in his chest. He steps into the clearing, and his eyes widen as he takes in the scene before him. The Shadow King's knight stands at the center, surrounded by a circle of robed figures, their faces hidden behind masks of black leather. The knight's voice rises and falls in a hypnotic cadence, the words indistinguishable, but the malevolent intent clear. Elian's grip on his sword tightens, his mind racing with the implications of what he is witnessing. The ritual summons a dark energy, and the trees seem to lean in, their branches tangling overhead. Elian's breath catches in his throat as he realizes he may be too late to stop the ritual. The Shadow King's power may soon be unstoppable, and Elian's fingers wrap tighter around his sword hilt. Decaying leaves crunch beneath his feet as he shifts his weight, his eyes fixed on the knight. The knight's voice booms through the forest, echoing off the trees. You, Elian, are the key to unlocking the Shadow King's true power. Elian's grip on his sword tightens, the leather wrapping creaking beneath his fingers. The knight's words seem to hang in the air, heavy with an unspoken weight. Elian's eyes lock onto the knight, his gaze tracing the lines of the black armor, the helmet's visor glinting in the faint moonlight. The forest around them is silent, the only sound the distant hooting of an owl, a mournful cry that sends a shiver down Elian's spine. He takes a step back, his boots sinking into the underbrush, the leaves crunching beneath his feet. The knight's voice drops to a low, menacing tone. The Shadow King's darkness is spreading, consuming all in its path. And you, Elian, are the catalyst for its growth. Elian's mind reels, his thoughts racing with the implications. He feels a presence stirring within him, a dark energy that threatens to consume him whole. The knight's words seem to awaken this energy, and Elian can feel it growing, spreading through his veins like a poison. His vision blurs, the forest around him dissolving into a dark, formless void. He stumbles, his sword slipping from his grasp, the metal ringing out as it hits the ground. The knight's voice is the last thing he hears, a low, commanding tone that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The Shadow King's power grows, and you, Elian, are its key. Night falls over the ruins of the realm, darkness pooling in the low-lying areas. Crumbling stones beneath Elian's feet are worn smooth by time and neglect. The scent of decay and smoke clings to the air, acrid tang of burned wood and char hanging over the landscape. The sweet hint of blooming wildflowers struggling to break through the desolation. He breathes deeply, filling his lungs with the smell, and scans the horizon for some sign of hope, his eyes straining against the fading light. Shadows cast by the ruins stretch and twist on the ground. Elian's shoulders ache, his head throbs as he leans against the wall, searching for support, his fingers tracing the intricate carvings that still cling to the stone. Tendrils of darkness curl around his thoughts. His vision blurs, and for a moment the ruins twist and writhe. The sound of his own breathing anchors him to reality, a steady rhythm that keeps him grounded, the creaks and groans of the old stones echoing through the silence. Elian's hand tightens on the hilt of his sword, the leather wrapping creaking softly, the metal warm against his palm. The blade hums with a faint, malevolent energy. He feels the Shadow King's presence, a cold weight pressing against his mind. "I will not be swayed," he whispers, the words lost in the darkness. The ground beneath his feet shifts, and he is back in the hidden chamber, the text that revealed the Shadow King's true intentions burning in his mind. The darkness presses in, a suffocating shroud threatening to consume him. Elian's grip on his sword falters, and he staggers, his foot scraping against the stone, the sparks flying like fireflies in the blackness. The world around him dissolves into chaos, the ruins blurring and shifting. He tries to call out, to scream against the darkness, but his voice is lost in the void. He sees the outline of a figure, tall and imposing, standing at the edge of the courtyard, drawing the darkness closer like a magnet attracting steel. Rubble crunches beneath the knight's boots as he stands victorious, his black armor gleaming in the faint light. At his feet lies Elien, broken and still, his once piercing green eyes dull and lifeless. The knight's deep voice thunders through the silence, his words, "You should have surrendered when you had the chance, Elien." Laced with a mix of contempt and pity, the sound echoing off the ruins like a death knell. Smoke and ash hang in the air, the acrid smell of burning wood and stone filling the desolate landscape. A helmet gazes out upon the ruins, the face behind it hidden. Elien's thoughts tumble through his mind, a jumbled mess of madness and despair. His breath comes in ragged gasps, his chest heaving with the effort. The knight's gaze falls upon Elien's broken form, his eyes gleaming with contempt and pity. "You were a formidable foe, Elien," he says, his voice dripping with condescension. "But in the end, you were no match for the Shadow King's power." Elien's gaze falters, his chin dipping as his eyes drift downward, settling on the rubble-strewn ground with a sense of hopelessness. The ruins of the realm stretch out before them, a vast expanse of destruction. The knight's voice drones on, a monotone that grates against Elien's raw nerves. Elien's heart sinks, his mind reeling from the shock of his defeat. He slumps forward, his head in his hands. The knight's words cut deep into Elien's psyche, a cruel taunt that he cannot escape. "You should have surrendered," he repeats, his voice cold and calculated. Darkness closes in around Elien, the shadows deepening into an abyss that threatens to consume him whole. He wraps his arms around his head, the sound of the knight's voice muffled by his own despair. Elien's eyes, once bright and full of hope, are now dull and lifeless, his spirit crushed by the weight of his defeat. The Shadow King's power grows, his influence spreading across the realm like a stain. Elien's hope dwindles, his heart heavy with grief and despair. He rocks back and forth, the motion a futile attempt to comfort himself. Rubble-strewn ground stretches out before Elien, the sound of his boots scraping against the dirt echoing through the desolate landscape. A massive crater yawns open, the remnants of a once great castle reduced to a smouldering pit. Smoke and ash hang in the air, their acrid smell burning his nostrils. Desolation surrounds him, punctuated only by the faint whisper of wind through the wreckage. Crumbling spires and shattered stone walls stretch towards the sky like skeletal fingers. The weight of his failure settles upon him, his shoulders sagging under the burden of his inability to stop the Shadow King's darkness. A low, ominous drone builds in the distance, growing in intensity. Elien's head turns, tracking the sound, and he sees a dark tendril of shadow stretching across the horizon. The drone grows louder, a cacophony that threatens to consume him whole. Elien's vision blurs, and for a moment he is back in the hidden chamber, the text revealing the Shadow King's true intentions burning in his mind. The words, once a beacon of hope, now mock him. The realm is no more, and Elien is left to pick up the pieces of a shattered world. The drone reaches a fever pitch, and Elien's knees buckle, sending him crashing to the ground. He lands hard, the wind knocked from his lungs. His palms scrape against the rough stone, and warm blood seeps from his injured hands. Darkness closes in, a suffocating shroud that threatens to extinguish the last remnants of light. Elien's vision fades, and he is left with only the sound of his own ragged breathing. The realm is gone, and Elien is left to face the consequences of his failure, alone and adrift in a world gone mad. Rubble crunches beneath boots as the desolate landscape unfolds. Smoke and ash cling to the ground, their acrid scent mingling with the smell of damp earth. The sound of scraping boots echoes through the stillness, a solitary noise in a vast, empty expanse. Grey clouds swirl above, twisting in every direction. In the distance, Skeletal Castle remains loom, a grim monument to the Shadow King's power. The wind stirs, carrying whispers of forgotten screams. Ground stretches out, a rubble-strewn expanse that meets the horizon. Eyes fixed on the ground. A mind reels with fragmented images and half-remembered nightmares. Thoughts blur, reality and madness intertwining. The Shadow King's influence has consumed him, darkness and despair etched into his thoughts. A footfall echoes, a stark reminder of isolation. The sound is the only noise in a world gone mad. Fingers curl into a fist, a hand trembling as sanity hangs by a thread. Darkness closes in, a suffocating shroud that threatens to consume his very soul. Elian's breath comes in ragged gasps, his chest heaving. His perception of reality is altered, his mind reeling from trauma. The Shadow King's power grows, hope dwindling to a faint, flickering ember. The darkness consumes him, his mind shattered. Twisted metal and shattered stone stretch out before him, a barren landscape. His downfall is complete, his sense of self lost. The Shadow King's victory is total. Darkness spreading across the realm. In the midst of this desolation he stands, a figure frozen in the wreckage of his own mind. Dust coats the ground, disturbed only by the faint impression of a hand. Faint creaking of twisted metal and the distant call of a lone bird punctuate the stillness. Two stones, worn smooth, seem to stare back from the face of the figure sitting amidst the rubble. A scar above his left eyebrow is more pronounced, a reminder of the trials he has faced. Rubble stretches out before him, a vast expanse of decay. Crumbling castles lie in shattered fragments, their Gothic spires reaching towards the sky. Smoke and ash hang in the air, the scent of charred wood and metal filling his nostrils. His gaze wanders, taking in the devastation as his mind struggles to comprehend the scale of destruction. Grime and ash smudge his face, and his dark hair is matted and dirty. Tattered robes hang from his shoulders, frayed and worn. The sound of his own breathing is the only constant in this desolate landscape. His fingers close around a small, jagged rock, the grip tightening as he struggles to come to terms with his situation. The rock is cool to the touch, its rough surface contrasting with the smooth stones that line the nearby riverbed. The river, once a gentle flow, is now a stagnant pool choked with debris and ash. His eyes drift towards the river, his mind numb. Thoughts jumble together, fragmented images and half-remembered sounds. The rock in his hand is a connection to the world, a reminder that even in devastation there is still a physical reality. Elian sits, surrounded by the ruins, his mind shattered by the horrors he has witnessed. His grip on the rock keeps him grounded in a world gone mad. Rough stone scrapes beneath boots, the sound echoing through stillness. At the edge of a precipice, the landscape stretches out, a vast expanse of rubble and decay. In the distance, shattered castle towers pierce the sky, their broken silhouettes a stark contrast to the surrounding desolation. Damp earth and moss cling to every surface, their earthy scent filling the air. Red-rimmed eyes drink in the desolation, the only sound the faint rustle of wind through rubble. Fingers dig into the rock face, searching for a handhold. The wind stirs, carrying the scent of damp earth and moss and the faint tang of rust. The rock face is cold and unyielding beneath grasping fingers. Time itself is shattered in this bleak landscape, leaving only an endless, featureless plain of ruin. Above, the sky is a deep, foreboding grey. A slow, measured breath rises and falls in the silence, the only movement in a world frozen in perpetual twilight. The breath catches, a small, sharp sound in the stillness. In this moment, a small, insignificant figure stands at the edge of the precipice, a fleeting thought in a realm lost to darkness. The darkness closes in, a physical presence that presses against the skin. The rock face looms, a solid, unyielding presence that offers no comfort. Elian's fingers scrape against the rough stone, a jarring contrast to the emptiness within. His eyes, once piercing green, now dull and lifeless, stare out at the ruins of the realm, the skeletal remains of the castle where he discovered the hidden text that revealed the Shadow King's true intentions. The smell of old stone and earth fills his nostrils, a morbid scent that wafts up from the rubble. In the distance, a lone bird calls, a faint echo of the turmoil that once raged within him. Elian's grip on the stone tightens, his knuckles white, as he struggles to maintain a connection to the world around him. The Shadow King's true intentions are now clear: to use Elian as a vessel for his power, to spread darkness across the realm and to claim the last remnants of light for himself. the Shadow King's Knight stands as a silent guardian, a reminder of the Shadow King's mastery over the realm. Elian's thoughts unravel, leaving behind a hollow silence that echoes through his chest. The faint whisper of the Shadow King's voice echoes in his mind. "You are my key, Elian, and with you, the realm is mine." As the darkness seeps from every pore, Elian's body sags, weight settling into the stone beneath him. His breath catches, a low sigh, and he whispers, "I am the shadow that remains."